I'm Hannah Wallace and welcome to FinextraTV's Predict 2022 series. Kindly calling into our virtual studio today is Vincent Kilcoyne, Executive Vice President of Product Management at SmartStream. So, Vincent, it's good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Likewise, Hannah, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year, yes. Really looking forward to hearing your predictions, particularly around artificial intelligence and machine learning going into 2022. But we're also going to be discussing the importance of the back office as an area where banks will be able to see efficiency gains through the adoption of AI and machine learning. So before we look ahead, though, perhaps you could briefly bring us up to date by noting some of those hurdles that cause banks the most significant challenges in this space to date. Let's start there.
So I completely agree. It's always worthwhile having a quick review of what happened, what went well, what went adequately, and what went, shall we say, suboptimally. I think that the entire 18-month period, for want of a better word, has been broken into effectively a game of two halves. In that the first half, everybody was wondering, what do we have to do to re-establish BAU? And there were a number of hurdles, challenges and false starts in the midst of that. But by and large, people really rallied, the organizations rallied, compliance rallied, technology rallied, and the regulators rallied all around this collective problem. People then spent a number of times resolving those problems, stabilizing, establishing BAU. And then there was effectively a big collective sigh of relief saying, right, we're back on. We've reestablished BAU, only for the effectively the landscape to change to a certain extent. Yeah. Now there was a massive change in terms of technology. There was a massive change in terms of the competitive ecosystem. There was a massive change in terms of what customers were expecting from the financial services community. So the digital agenda moved very much to the front of everybody's line of thinking, everybody's strategy. It was on the agenda for every C-suite, for every investor, for every customer. And really that's where the common theme for the last probably 12 months and prevailing going forward is the whole digitization agenda. How do we achieve that as an industry, as an ecosystem, as a collective, from a vendor perspective, from a financial services provider perspective? And then how do we then leverage the data that we're collecting as part of that? So it's very much a case of establish BAU, stabilize that, maintain it, and then look at what's happening in light of regulations, technology, customers, competition, etc.
That's right, and we'll come to regulation a bit more in a bit, but thank you very much for the update. It leads us very nicely into the crux of the question, which is how will banks utilise AI and machine learning to their advantage in the coming year, and what will be the benefits, and what will it mean for their ability to compete, innovate, and also comply?
Right, so I think it's actually relatively simple. Like all complex situations, you boil them down to a common seed, and the common seed is the data. When you look at any bank, they are absolutely awash with data. And the problem when you look at it on the back of a number of crises, why have crises evolved? It's because organizations have not been able to take advantage of the data, because it is broken out into multiple silos across the organization. BCBS 239 sought to bring that together from enterprise risk. And furthermore, the regulators have been driving that agenda around better decision making from better data quality and better data content and more stable data stores. Now, the banks have been responding, and the financial services and fintech community have been really embracing the challenge and the opportunity that lies within that. But the banks have got an incredible advantage over anybody in this world in that they've got the data. And every and any predictive or analytical model is determined, and its success and its quality is determined by the data. So really, the organizations that are looking at these problems from an analytical use case perspective have to work with the data owners, and that is the banks. The banks are obviously now focusing on bringing that data together And then they've got to be able to understand, how do I mobilize that data in a manner in which I can actually put together analytical use cases? When you look at it at the banks, they have traditionally spooled up a hosted environment, and that has gone through procurement, etc., and a whole lot of ROI analysis, and it's taken a lot of time. And that barrier has now been broken, because you can very quickly spool up an environment up in the cloud. You can build analytical use cases. You can throw in really intelligent people from within your organization and from outside, in association with fintechs and experts, and really now take advantage of being able to build and test a lot of the analytical use cases to see which ones are exciting. And then if you find one that's exciting, can you actually identify what the monetizable benefit is? And then if there's a good monetizable benefit, it becomes exciting. And then you can actually turn it into something that is actually of real benefit to your organization.
All right, thank you very much for that. That's interesting. So let's talk a bit more about regulation then. How do you see the regulatory climate changing as we go into 2022? And what impact do you predict this will have on bank to front going forward then?
So if you actually look at it, it's relatively simple. Which is perhaps a battle cry for what we should be calling it. I'm calling this initiative, from my perspective, it's back to the front, or back to front. And what do I mean by that? Organizations have typically looked at, how do we serve our clients in the front office? How do we serve my wholesale clients, my bank clients, my corporates, my retail clients, my private clients, etc.? And fundamentally, a recognition has come across both the banking community and the regulators that any disconnects, any operational losses, any unexpected costs come as a result of poor data control, management, etc. Right? So by actually bringing all of your data together from the back office, because that's where the predominant operational insight comes from. So how do you bring all of that data, build all of your data models, and then mobilize that intelligence and push it forward? So what I'm doing is I'm taking all of the data in the back and pushing it to the front, hence my term back to front. All right. So I think that the regulators now recognize that by causing the industry to solve their operational disconnects, it's necessary to bring your data together. And there's a certain element of pain in that. Bringing my data into warehouses, into operational data stores, into large clusters, Hadoop data lakes, whatever term you want to use. But in the midst, or at the back end of all of that pain, there is a potential gain, because I now have a really high quality trusted data store to build reliable, good quality use cases that are monetizable, that improve the interaction I have, not only with my customers, but the quality of the information that I'm able to give to the regulator in terms of timeliness. So if we look at intraday liquidity management for BCBS 248, that is around having real-time access to actionable intelligence on cash and liquidity. Once you satisfy that regulatory initiative, you're actually able to make better decisions. So the regulatory initiatives and corporate strategy are aligned around the quality of data, de-siloing the data, and then being able to build actionable, intelligent use cases from the information that drive not only benefit to you as a bank, but also to your customers, and reduce the operational losses and disconnects that irritate the regulators.
All right, well, there's a lot of enthusiasm there, and really looking forward to reflecting on those predictions further down the line, Vincent. But in summary then, what do you think will be the sort of top changes in this space, and what will be those things that banks need to really consider moving ahead?
I see that there's a huge initiative across the industry to get everything up in the cloud. And I think that really, when you look at it, everything up in the cloud is a little bit of a blasé term. I think that there's going to be a real drive towards a hybrid strategy, not hybrid cloud. I mean a hybrid strategy as in part of my data within my organization, part of my data up in the cloud, where I can build interesting, innovative test cases, use cases. I can do a lot of innovation in the cloud. I can mobilize the data up there for the purposes of testing a hypothesis. Once it's working, I then can choose, how do I want to deploy it? Do I want to deploy it through the cloud, or do I want to bring it back in right very close to my data? So I can see a large growth in that type of a use case, that type of innovation and exploration within the financial community. And I know that the regulators themselves are looking at cloud exposure and cloud concentration. So there's going to be some concern, and I think this approach of having a hybrid strategy rather than all of your operations completely in the cloud, all right, is going to allay some of the concerns and the fears of the regulators on that particular topic.
Very interesting. Vincent, thank you so much, and some good advice weaved in there as well. But we'll leave it there, and like I say, we'll catch up later on and reflect on those predictions. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you very much.